So from a kayfabe standpoint, it made no sense that they were really about to let Lana get in the ring and compete in the Rumble, knowing that she had a badly sprained ankle. It's like, so y'all cleared her knowing how hurt she was? So from that kayfabe standpoint, it made no sense. It was stupid. And that whole segment of Lana trying to get into the ring and then she can't do it, and then Becky comes out and tries to, or successfully convinces Finlay to let her get in the ring and compete in the Rumble. That whole thing took about 2 to 3 minutes longer than it should have. It made the show drag out and made it even longer than it should have been. And it made the women's Rumble match longer than it should have been. I believe the women's Rumble was what? It was an hour and 12 minutes. Good grief. That is way too long. And then Nia would attack Lana. Was that? I believe that was before Becky came out, right? Oh no, that was after. That was after. Okay. And Lana, because Lana was, I believe she was getting ready to try to go to the back. She was starting to get up. Becky Lynch was already in the ring. Nia came out at 29 and then attacked Lana, which that was unnecessarily called for. I guess it was to draw even more heat on Nia, but you know what's crazy? And I noticed this. Nia, that heat is slowly fading off of her. Like, she's not getting booed as massively as she once did since punching Becky and giving her a concussion and bloody nose. Or an alleged concussion, because I still don't believe that was a concussion. Becky seemed way too fine for that to be a concussion. Natty, I believe, broke the record for the women for longest time spent in the Rumble match. I believe she was in for... How long was she in it? 56 minutes and 1 second. Oh. The commentators said 55 minutes and 58 seconds. I don't know which timestamp is wrong, but somebody's wrong there. Because those are two completely different times spent in the Rumble. But she broke Sasha Banks' record that Sasha set last year, which people were freaking out and upset about that. Like, why? Natty is a veteran. For years, we've been talking about how Natty deserves this, and that, and deserves more and better. And then when she gets a record, when she breaks someone else's record, all of a sudden it's a problem. Like, the fans, most of the wrestling fans, they do not know what they want. And that's the issue. They do not know what they want, and they're so indecisive. And that's bad. That's real bad. And this is why WWE tries not to listen to us. This is why they try their best not to listen to us. Because we're so indecisive and we're so fickle that it gets in the way of what they want to do. And then when they finally cave in and give us what we want, we still have something else to complain about. That's the issue. And until we resolve that issue, not only will WWE, for the most part, not take us as seriously as we want them to, but the mainstream media will not take us as seriously as we want them to, and they will not respect us as we think they should respect us. We have to do better. We have to become better thinkers. We have to be better at this. So Becky won the match, last eliminating Charlotte after she had suffered a knee injury. I believe that of this. Yeah, and Becky eliminated Nia, and afterwards Nia came back and pushed Becky. I think Becky was on the stairs because she was trying to get back in the ring after I believe Charlotte tossed her out. And Nia came out of nowhere and pushed Becky off of the steps, and she landed on her knee. The selling of the knee and the whole story of the knee injury, that dragged out a little too long as well. Made the Rumble match even longer. These are the things that WWE has to plan out more better and more strategically. Or they could just not have the show be 7 hours long. They could just do that. I think that would be better. And that's it. So Becky won the Women's Royal Rumble match. I knew she was gonna win. I'm pretty sure we all knew she was gonna win. It's strange because for the weeks leading up to this, people kept saying, we want Becky to win, Becky should win. And they all kept saying, if Charlotte wins, I'm going to blow my brains out. If Charlotte wins, I'm going to go ape shit. If Charlotte wins, I'm doing this, that, and the third, and I will not be happy. But then Becky wins, and all of a sudden, oh, that was too predictable. That's ridiculous. My God, this was boring because it was so predictable. Like, we knew she was going to win. Why did they not swerve us? It's like, but you wanted Becky to win. You 1 minute you didn't want to be swerved, now in the next minute you wanted to be swerved. This is exactly what I'm talking about, people. This is exactly, and I'm gonna keep bringing this up until things change. For us wrestling fans, I'm really gonna keep bringing up how indecisive and how much of vicious, parasitic, if that's even a word, parasitic assholes that we are. Because we are. We are like vultures. We are ridiculous. We are terrible people when it comes to wrestling. We're the most biased, emotional fans ever. And we need to break away from that in order for us to gain this respect that we've been wanting for years. From the mainstream. From those who don't watch what we watch and enjoy what we enjoy. Because we don't nearly get this much crap and this much ridiculous, bias, emotional. We don't get this type of thing when it comes to people who watch movies. When it comes to people who watch other sports. It is nearly not as bad as it is with us wrestling fans. That's why we have to call ourselves a so-called wrestling community. Because nobody else has to call themselves a community. Why do we have to call ourselves a community? Not because we're in the minority, because we are not in the minority. The media will make you think that we're in the minority. And even us, to a certain degree, we will make you think that we're in the minority. But wrestling fans are not minority of people. We're not. We're actually the majority. Of when it comes to fans in terms of all sports, because we have a worldwide fan base. Not saying that other sports don't, but no other sports have the worldwide fan base and appeal that we do. So why do we have to call ourselves a minority? Why? Because we're the only crop, the only group of fans that act and behave the way we do. And it has to stop. It has to stop eventually. Let's see here. Rhea Ripley was very impressed as well in the Women's Rumble match. She is huge. I tend to forget how big she is. She has size. That girl has insane size on her. You know what's crazy? Is that Rhea Ripley looked like a better version of Tamina. She looks like a better version of Tamina. And she looks like Tamina, but bigger and better in the ring. Food for thought. Next up, oh boy, the WWE Championship match between defending champ Daniel Bryan and former two-time champ AJ Styles. At this point, the fans were just emotionally drained from the Women's Rumble match. At this point, I was emotionally drained from the women's Rumble match. And I wasn't even at Chase Field. I wasn't even in the stadium with the fans watching it live. I was at home watching this shit, and even I was emotionally drained. I was damn near physically drained. I don't even know how that's possible because I was just sitting on my lazy chair. But even I was emotionally drained after the women's Rumble match. The placement of this match, I think, was the biggest problem of all. And also the fact that we're not as interested or invested in this series between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles anymore. Both men are past their prime. We cannot forget to mention that. Daniel Bryan's peak, in my view, Daniel Bryan's peak was from about 2008 to 2013. That 5-year period, nobody was better than Daniel Bryan in the ring. Daniel Bryan, from my eyes, based on what I've seen, was at his peak the most intense wrestler that I'd seen since Chris Benoit. And he was just a fantastic joy to watch. But this isn't 2013 Daniel Bryan anymore. This is 2019 Daniel Bryan. And both men are past their prime. I just can't stress that enough. We're only going to get as much as they can give. Let me say that again. We're only going to get out of them as much as they can give. The match wasn't bad, even though there were a lot of moments where it was slow and semi-boring. But we have to remember, AJ Styles was the longest reigning WWE champion to be champion at his age since Bruno Sammartino's second reign as WWE champion back in the 70s. That's not an opinion, that's fact. Ever since then, no one had wrestled into their 40s, be champion, and be champion that long, coming into their 40s, like AJ Styles, since Bruno. AJ was in 2 very physical feuds. Say what you will about the feuds, how they started, how they finished, how they were in the middle, the results, the storylines, what have you. Say what you will about the 2 feuds. But Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura gave AJ the most physical matches of his second reign as WWE champion. And that took a lot out of him. And you could see it. You could see it. AJ is starting to break down. Slowly but surely, he's starting to break down. And it's only a matter of time before he completely breaks down to the point where he has to retire. I know that's fucked up to say, but it's the truth. I think that as much as people say that AJ wrestling in New Japan first before coming to the WWE was the best decision that he's ever made in his career, it was also the worst decision that he's ever made in his career. Because being in Japan, being in that style, the physicality in which that they wrestle in, took even more out of AJ. AJ would be not 1,000,000 times, but he would be 10 times better right now in the ring had he not wrestled in Japan. Now, to AJ's credit, he's been able to adapt and tone down the things that he used to do in his prime. And I give him a lot of credit. You know, from that aspect, you can compare him to Shawn Michaels in terms of being that rare gem of talent to be able to wrestle at a high elite level well into their 40s. So I'll give him credit for that. But we still have to acknowledge that AJ Styles is not as good as he once was. And AJ Styles at one point was the most talented wrestler that I'd seen in a long time, since Rob Van Dam in his prime. So this match wasn't that good. I thought their TLC match was better. Let's see, I gotta go back. Okay. I thought their TLC match was better. And I hope this feud is over, because I have no interest in seeing another match between the two. Now, a match between these two 5 to about 6 years ago would have been an all-time classic match and an all-time classic rivalry. Granted, they still have had great matches against each other and great chemistry, but boy, it just would have been a hell of a lot better to see these two wrestle each other in their prime. Just saying. On a big stage. I didn't write too many notes for this match. I basically just wrote the finish. Eric Rowan coming out to help Bryan win, chokeslamming AJ while the ref was down. Bryan went for the cover, got the 3 count. Rowan is bigger. Definitely put on some weight. Hopefully it benefits him as opposed to hindering him when he eventually gets back in the ring. I like where this is going, though. And it's a shame in a way, because I firmly believe that Lars Sullivan was supposed to be in Rowan's place, in Eric Rowan's place. I am more sure than not sure that Lars Sullivan was supposed to be Bryan's heavy, as opposed to Eric Rowan. But we all know the story. If you don't know, just to give a quick rundown, Lars Sullivan was backstage on Raw, I believe 2 weeks ago, and he suffered an anxiety attack. He got cold feet. He froze. And he ended up leaving the building. He was in the back and he ended up leaving right before he was set to debut or come out at some point. Like, he was set to be on the show, and he got cold feet, got real nervous, panicked, and left. Which I never would have expected that, ever. And it really sucks, because when Lars eventually comes back, now the company knows that they can't trust him. So now that they know that they can't trust him, they're not going to do much with him. I am firmly in that realm. I'm firmly knowing and believing that they're not going to do too much with him. They're not going to do nearly half of what they had planned on doing with him, because he got cold feet. You have to be mentally ready for this whenever they call you up. He knew he was getting called up. So that's the thing that kind of frustrates me with the whole situation, is that he knew he was going to get called up. I think that they told him that they were going to try to get him with Cena, and I think that's when he kind of freaked out. But the thing is that when it comes to that situation, you're not supposed to freak out. You're supposed to remain calm at all times. And even if you can't help but freak out, just go to creative and tell them, look, I don't think I'm ready for that level of pressure and that level of being in a high level storyline with an all-time great like that. That's all he had to do. That's all he had to say. Just say that. But walking off, nah, you don't do that. You do not do that. To me, that's unacceptable. And that just shows that you're not mentally capable of doing this. Not just wrestling at a high level or going up against an elite level talent, but you're not capable of wrestling, period. That's how I feel about it. You know? Let's So yeah, that's about it for my coverage with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Daniel Bryan retains the title, um, and hopefully these two don't wrestle anymore against each other. Now, Brock Lesnar defending the Universal title against Finn Balor. People were upset that Finn didn't come out as the Demon, which I don't know what they expected. Finn literally said he wasn't gonna come out as the Demon. And it has been said, not even just for weeks, but for months, it has been said that WWE wants to keep the Demon undefeated. They've been saying that for months. So if he doesn't come out as the Demon for a big pay-per-view match, you know he's gonna lose. So why get frustrated anyway when you knew he was going to lose? It just makes no sense. Now, this match was short. It wasn't even 10 minutes. It was 8 minutes. And the match was short because they were cutting off time. They were shaving off time because they had to get to the men's rumble. And they had to close the show before midnight. Or they wanted to close the show before midnight. If they wanted to go over midnight, they would have. If they really wanted to, just to piss us off, they would have went over midnight. But they didn't. They didn't want to, so they had to shave time off of this match, which I still stand firm in my belief that The Miz and Shane against the Bar should have just not been on the card. Take that match off, and if you want to, put all four of them in the Rumble instead. Because none of those four were in the Rumble match, in the men's Rumble match. I'm pretty sure of it. As a matter of fact, let me check. Yep. Neither four of those guys were in the men's Rumble match. So I'd say take them out of the tag title match and just put them in the Rumble. Because with the men, there are a couple of guys that they could have taken off of the match and just not used, period. Sunday night. Okay, so Brock and Finn. Once again, the ring announcers, they're picking and choosing what they want to announce when it comes to the wrestlers. I don't know why. Finn's weight was not announced, even though they did a tail of the tape showing Finn's weight and height and all of these things. They showed all of this, and yet they didn't announce his weight. Nitpicky shit, but it was something that still stood out to me and kind of bothered me. Not too much, but it still bothered me. So this match was really good. I thought it was really good for 8 minutes, you know. One of the best 8-minute matches, you know, ever. And, you know, Finn, the emotional, psychological, I almost couldn't say it, psychological aspect of this match was heightened with Finn targeting Brock's stomach, his abdomen. The commentators mentioned that Brock did have diverticulitis, which is true. He did have diverticulitis, and it took away most of his prime as a competitor in the UFC. They mentioned that. I like that they did that. I like that they told that story of Finn going after Brock's stomach. It's crazy because I think the last time they had somebody go after Brock's stomach in a match to show that, you know, that's Brock's biggest weakness because of his diverticulitis battle was, I believe, the Royal Rumble back in 2015. Ironically, same event a few years back when it was Seth and Cena in the triple threat for the title. But they over-exaggerated by saying that Brock broke a couple of ribs, which no one ever believed that for a second. But yeah, that was the last time that they had Brock be weakened at that body part. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, Finn, man. I'm hopeful for Finn. I'm hopeful, and I'm being patient with Finn. We have to remember that Finn got hurt within his first 2 months on the main roster. And we cannot forget to mention that concussion that he had as well. Because it seems like nobody brings that up. That Finn Balor had a concussion. I believe it was either late 2017 or early last year. In a match against Jinder Mahal on Raw. Where Jinder forearmed him in the face real hard. And it gave Finn a concussion. It didn't give him a major concussion. It was a mild concussion, and he was only out for something like 2 weeks, maybe 1 week. But we can't forget he still had that as well. That's the thing. A lot of times when WWE is going with somebody, they're trying to push somebody or get somebody to a certain level or get somebody to stay at a certain level. We have to remember, WWE, I believe, my opinion, first and foremost, wants to make sure that whoever they want to put the rocket to and put the strap on, don't make any jokes now in the comment section just because I said that, because that came out weird. They want to make sure, first and foremost, in my view, that whoever they get behind is going to be healthy for the entire duration in which the machine is behind them for. First and foremost, this is why they don't do much with Joe, at least not anymore, because Joe has gotten hurt several times, whether it be freak accident or due to his own faults in the ring. Joe has gotten hurt a few times. And mainly it's because he's aging. He's aging and he's not adapting. He's not changing up his style. He's essentially wrestling the same style that he's wrestled his whole career. And he can't be doing that because he's almost 40. And he's old. And his body is not holding up anymore. Like the way it used to. That's why they're not doing much with Joe. It's not because they have some personal vendetta against him. It has nothing to do with that. And it's not because creative is just being morons and they have nothing for Joe. It has nothing to do with that. Joe keeps getting hurt. That is a fact. The man keeps getting hurt. I'm not going to say that Finn keeps getting hurt because that's a complete bullshit. But you can't blame them for being a little bit suspicious of Finn. And he, too, like Joe, they're getting up there in age. Finn is almost 40. Granted, he doesn't look 40 at all. He barely looks a day over 30, especially since he shaved a little bit for this match with Brock. Since he shaved a little bit of the beard off. But he's still almost 40 years old. We can't forget that. Now, granted, Finn's body is not breaking down. He's still very capable in the ring. Still very effective. Still can do this at a high level. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. But he's getting up there. He's aging. Now, is it WWE's fault that he's aging and not getting a push? Yes, because they had him down there in NXT for way too long. And even Daniel Bryan pointed that out as a criticism of why Finn has been, quote-unquote, underutilized. Because Bryan even said it himself. Finn was down in NXT way too long. And I agree. I completely agree. Finn was down there too long. I would even go as far as say that Shinsuke Nakamura was down there too long. Even though he wasn't down there as long as Finn was. But even he was down there too long. We're going to have Finn Balor down there for freaking 2 years. Almost 2.5 years. But we're only going to have Nia Jax up there not even 6 months, and we're going to call her up thinking that she's ready. It's ridiculous. Even though we all know Nia's family ties is what has made her as successful, for the most part, has made her successful as she has been because of her family ties. Finn doesn't have any family ties. So of course that's going to bring him down a notch. But Finn is up there in age. He's aging. Still effective. I'm not saying that Finn sucks in the ring right now. This is not me saying that, because he is still very much capable. But he is aging. And even though Brock is, you might say, oh, but Brock is older. But Brock is different. Like, there's no other way of explaining it. Brock is just different. And plus, Vince has always loved Brock. And even though that 24 special that they did after the Rumble, I watched it right after the Rumble went off. And the first thing I see is Brock coming to the back from WrestleMania last year after that shitty match with Roman in the main event. Comes to the back and throws the Universal. Don't anybody that wants to defend Brock, please don't. I'm telling you right now, please don't. I'm trying not to get too emotional because I don't want to get emotional, but this is the truth. If you're about to defend Brock, please don't. If you're gonna come in the comment section to defend Brock, please don't. And it hurt me just as much as it hurt anybody else to see Brock do that. Throw the unit. He didn't toss that shit. He threw the Universal title at Vince. That to me, that's crossing the line. You don't do that. You do not do that. I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't give a fuck how much money you make. You do not do that to your boss. You don't throw the freaking title at Vince like that. And Vince had every right to react the way he reacted. Now, if I was Vince, I probably would have done more than what Vince did. But Vince, you know, he's been through this with many stars before in the past. He's been through these disagreements and these arguments and these problems with many wrestlers before. So he's able to keep a cooler head. And cooler heads do prevail. So all he did was scream asshole at Brock. Now, if it was me or anybody else, they would have done more than that. Guarantee you. But Vince kept it cool because he's a professional. And he's been the boss of this company for like almost 40 years now. So he's able to keep a cool head. And I respect him for that. And I appreciate him for that. But what Brock did was totally out of line. Totally disrespectful. And any type of defense mechanism that I had for him, which I did. I defended Brock a little bit. I agreed with the fans when they said that Brock shouldn't have held the Universal title as long as he did the first time. I completely agree with that. Completely. I did not think he would hold it as long as he did. It, quite frankly, shocked me. I've stated on this channel, I've stated previously time and time again, he should have lost the title to Joe. And since he didn't lose the title to Joe, he should have then lost it to Strowman at No Mercy back in 2017. Because Strowman was ready. Even though the company felt like he wasn't ready for some reason. We all felt that he was ready. I thought he was ready. He was ready. He was the most focused that he had ever been. And Joe should have gotten the title just because of how intense that feud leading up to Great Balls of Fire was. You know. But they did what they did, and it's a shame that Brock has had what seems like an eternity of runs with the Universal title. Now, unlike most fans, I'm not against Brock being champion. I'm just against him being champion forever. I'm not against him being champion because as someone who used to watch the UFC a lot, I don't mind someone being champion and not being on TV every week, obviously, because I watch the UFC every now and then. So I'm okay with it. But being champion as long as he is and not being on TV, that's ridiculous. I will admit that is ridiculous. And the Suplex City thing, you know, the repetitiveness of that, I blame WWE for that, but I also blame Brock for that. Because Brock should have never said Suplex City bitch to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31. Ever since then, you know how this company operates. You peeps know how this company operates. Once they see gold in something, they will run that shit to the ground until nobody gives a flying fuck anymore. And that's the problem. They don't know how to kill something off before it gets stale. They wait till they wait. I'm about to use I'm about to either this is gonna be the most overphrase or it's going to go over like a fart in church. I don't know. But they took something that was solid, and they didn't wait till it became stale. They waited till it turned into mold. Like, now Suplex City is mold. It's not stale anymore. It's straight mold. It's a bad type of green fungus bacteria type of thing on somebody's foot at this point. That's what it is now. It's fungi. It's fungi on somebody's foot. It's that bad now. It's not even stale. It's fungus. It's complete straight up fungus. It's doo-doo. Okay? It's bad. But it was also Brock's fault because he came up with Suplex City, bitch, on the fly when he went against Roman. Had he not said that, we probably wouldn't get suplex after suplex after suplex. Remember, Brock is still very capable in the ring, and he's still good when he wants to be. But it's just that Suplex City shit. They continue to run that to the ground. If they would stop doing that, I guarantee you, Brock would go back to how he was. I wouldn't say he would completely go back to how he was in his prime, but he would be able to bring some of that feeling, some of that style that he had back, a little bit, some of it. And we wouldn't bitch, we wouldn't complain as much as we do about Brock Lesnar. So Brock submitted Finn with the Kimura lock, out of nowhere. I believe Finn had gave Brock the coup de grace, and he went for the pin. Brock kicked out. Finn was still on top of Brock, and then Brock then went into the Kimura lock. I thought it was a good match for the short amount of time that it was on. It's a shame that it was that short, but the show was going on way too long, so they had to cut that off. They had to cut time off of that match. If anything, they should have cut time between AJ and Bryan off as opposed to Brock and Finn. Because AJ and Bryan lasted over 20 minutes. As a matter of fact, that was the longest singles match on the show. Even counting the pre-show, that was the longest singles match on the entire show. Shouldn't have been. You cut off about 10 minutes of Bryan and AJ and put it into Brock and Finn, you have a better show. You have a better show than what we got. Alright, now, main event, because I want to finish this up. The men's Royal Rumble match. This ended up being shorter than the women's Rumble match because of Brock and Finn being short, because of the show being too long. Alright, I'll go back to my notes here. Alright. So, Jeff Jarrett. Did not see that coming, him entering the match. He was looking pretty out of shape. He's old. You know, Jeff is, what is Jeff now? Almost 52? Yeah, he'll be 52 this year. If he hasn't turned 52 already. He was looking out of shape and ridiculous. I did not think he was gonna come out in his old school, early 90s, new generation gear that he was in. I thought he was going to come out to his Attitude Era gear. But nonetheless, it was a nice surprise to have Jeff Jarrett enter the Rumble. The whole thing with him, that whole little segment with him and Elias, I wasn't into it. I didn't really care much for it. I didn't like it that much. Even though I was surprised that Elias hit Jeff Jarrett with the guitar. I was a little bit surprised by that. Johnny Wrestling. Johnny Gargano came in at number 6. The best overall wrestler in the company right now, bar none, is not even close. At his peak. A man who's at his absolute peak, at his absolute best. He entered the Rumble. He was in it for a little over 10 minutes. 13:50, as you can see there. Let's see what else. Oh, I meant to mention something with Sasha that I like too. Let me go back to that. Just rewind back to that real quick. I It was said on Twitter that Sasha was wearing her gear. The color scheme of her gear was reminiscent of her gear that she wore in her debut match. Not in the WWE, but when she became a professional wrestler. First gear that she wore had that same color scheme. It wasn't that exact same gear, but it had the same color scheme of her debut gear. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a nice throwback. Seth Rollins, another one that wore Phoenix colors. He wore Phoenix Suns colors, that is, though, for his gear. I thought that was cool. No Way Jose had his Godfather spot. What do I mean by that? 2013 Royal Rumble. You go back and watch that. Godfather came out with his hose, dancing, having a good time, gets in the ring, immediately got eliminated, and he brushed it off like it was nothing. At first, he was initially he was shocked, but then he brushed it off like it was nothing and continued with his hose, going back to the locker room. And they gave that spot this year to No Way Jose. Having him come out with the conga line or what have you, dancing, having a good time, comes in, gets eliminated in 2 seconds, which I like how they said, oh, that might have broke the record. No, it didn't. Even, like, once they said that, I immediately said, no, that did not break the record. Santino still has the record. I knew that was over 1 second. I just immediately knew that was over 1 second. What else? Kofi did 2 saves, which made this even more ridiculous. That was already bad enough, and if you didn't see part 1 of my review, I suggest you go back to watch that in order to get a better context of what I'm about to say. It was bad enough they already did three Royal Rumble saves in the Women's Rumble match with 3 different wrestlers. It's bad enough they already did that. They do 2 more saves with Kofi. Instead of just having Kofi do 1, he does 2. The first one was the scissors. I called it the scissors because Kofi, when he first got eliminated, or an attempt at an elimination, he had his hands on the floor and his feet on the apron. And he basically kept rolling over to the steps. And, he looked like scissors. Like, he looked like scissors crossing each other by the way he was crossing his feet. That's why I called it the scissors. I call it the scissors save. He did that, and also Xavier Woods carrying him, that spot where for some reason he dabbed. I don't know if anybody caught that. He dabbed and Millie rocked while Xavier Woods was carrying him back into the ring. It's ridiculous. Once again, they overdid it with those saves. That was 5 saves that happened in 2 different Rumble matches in one night. Ridiculous. Because it makes it look like overkill, and it makes it not special because it's 5 different saves. And you know what's crazy? What sucks about it the most is that the fact that they did so many saves Sunday night, it makes you wonder, okay, what are they going to do next year now? Since they've done almost every type of save that you can possibly do. What are they going to do next year? Everyone that did the saves, how are they going to top it next year? How the hell are they going to do it next year? Because they've done practically everything you could possibly do. So that's what ruins it. You're supposed to break it down. Give a little. That way you can be able to come back for more. But WWE, they sometimes do not know how to do that. Pete Dunne, British GOAT. That's what I wrote in my notes. Pete Dunne is the British GOAT. Nah, he ain't the British GOAT. Not yet. He's on his way there. He's on his way there to surpassing William Regal as the British GOAT in my view. Because Pete Dunne already has his shit together. And as long as he doesn't fall off, he very well may pass Regal in that department. Baron Corbin eliminated Aleister Black. Aleister Black was another NXT roster member that participated in the Royal Rumble. He was the third and final NXT roster member to participate in the match. People are complaining about the lack of surprises and the lack of NXT wrestlers competing in this match. Let me just say this. The Rumble is not designed for, like, even though WWE has conditioned you to believe that the Rumble is designed for surprises and NXT entrants, that's not what the Rumble is supposed to be about. The Royal Rumble is supposed to be, as Michael Cole calls it, WWE's, even though he did not say that at all Sunday, which surprised me. The Royal Rumble is supposed to be WWE's All-Star Game. That's it. That's it. It's supposed to be a bunch of talent that you wouldn't see wrestle each other throughout the year, wrestling each other a little bit throughout the Royal Rumble match. It's supposed to be different guys and girls from different brands going up against each other that you wouldn't see or you have never seen before, that you might not see go one-on-one with each other until later down the road. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, to me, it's supposed to be a tease of what you may see in the future in terms of one-on-one feuds. So the Royal Rumble didn't really become surprise entrant after surprise entrant after surprise entrant after surprise entrant. It didn't become that until the 2000s. I would say it didn't become that until, I don't know, about 2010, maybe 2011. No, I'd say 2011 is when they started doing that surprise entrance thing. That's when it became very prominent in the Royal Rumble match. Because if you go back, think about 2011, you had Booker T as a surprise entrant. He ended up coming back into the company after spending a couple of years in TNA. You had Kevin Nash, same thing with him, come back in the company for the first time in many years after a stint with TNA. Who else was in the 2011 Rumble that was a surprise? It was Booker T, Nash. I don't remember who else off the top of my head, but I believe that that's when they started that. So up until then, surprise entrance in the Rumble every year was not a thing up until 2011. That's when it became more prominent. And before then, nobody was complaining about lack of surprise entrance. So why all of a sudden is everybody complaining about the lack of surprise entrance? The Rumble is that's not supposed to be the foundation of the Royal Rumble. If you think that's the foundation of the Royal Rumble, then you have not watched a Royal Rumble before 2011. That's all I gotta say about that. So it's kind of unnecessary and unfair to complain about the lack of surprises. The Rumble, that's not the foundation of the Rumble. It's not. Aleister Black was eliminated by Baron Corbin, and I made a little joke. I made a joke on Twitter and on YouTube that Corbin was mad because Aleister Black's a better version of him, and that's why he eliminated him. It was a little joke. It was nothing. I thought it was funny, so I figured I'd mention it. Do I believe that? In a way, because every joke has a seriousness to it. Every joke has a little bit of truth in it, so I do believe that. Let's see what else. Lashley elimination. Why did I write that as a question? Lashley elimination. Oh, it was fast. That's why. It was real fast. I don't understand why Bobby Lashley's elimination was that fast. He was eliminated in 13 seconds. That's weird to me. I wish Jeff Hardy would go back to his old theme song. I don't know why they still have him coming out to the Hardy Boys theme. I don't know what's with that. Matt has pretty much been on hiatus for what feels like almost a year, damn near, at least 6 months. So I don't know why they're still having Jeff come out to the Hardy Boys theme when we all know that his solo theme is much better. I like this Tower of Doom spot that they had that was led by Braun Strowman and Rey Mysterio. I believe that Andrade had something to do with that spot. I like that. Of course, we all know Nia Jax attacked R-Truth and took his spot, coming in at number 30 in the Rumble. A lot of people were up in arms about it. I was not one of them. I did not care because I knew she wasn't going to win. I don't know why, and even now, it's Tuesday, and that still bothers people, the fact that Nia was in the Rumble. It was in both Rumbles. Why? She didn't win. So what's the problem? No, seriously. She didn't win, so what's the problem? I don't get it. And quite frankly, I thought that they needed to have Nia in both Rumbles. I thought it was actually necessary. I didn't clamor for it, and I didn't think it would happen, and I didn't necessarily care when it happened, but looking in the grand scheme of things, it was necessary because this was the best performance of Nia's career. Just being involved in both Rumbles. This is going to go up there as one of the best performances of her career. Arguably the best performance of her career. Because she has had a lot of duds in terms of her matches and in terms of her overall career so far. But the Royal Rumble, those two Rumble matches, they needed that to boost her in terms of her profile. And I think that they did that to try to regain whatever heat that they started losing, because Nia is not getting booed nearly as much as she was last year anymore. Over the last couple of weeks, it's simmered down. So the RKO and the 619 eliminated Nia. The contact that happened, listen, I remember back when they had intergender matches in the WWE, so I'm not complaining. I don't consider myself a part of this PC era. I don't. I remember when Vince fucking wrestled his own daughter, Stephanie, in a damn I Quit match at No Mercy back in, 03? I remember that shit. So, like, this company has done worse than what they did with Nia. So, the people that are up in arms about it, you clearly have not been watching WWE as long as I have. Because if you did, you wouldn't be up in arms about it. You wouldn't give a shit. And to those that said that Nia's involvement was taking the women's evolution or revolution, that it was taking it back. Come on now. No, it's not. It's not taking any steps back. We're not taking any steps back with Nia's involvement. No steps are being taken back. None. These are the same people that said that what happened with Alexa Bliss being topless and Mandy, the whole angle with Mandy, Naomi, and Jimmy Uso, none of that was taking any type of steps back. It was just being a little bit edgy for the sake of attention. That's it. That's all WWE was doing. If you think that at this point in time that women are going to go back to bra and panties matches, you are out of your mind. You are on some type of psychedelic drug, and you need to stop taking it now. Seriously. Like, calm down. You're freaking out for no reason. This company is not taking any steps backwards in terms of the women. So calm down. Okay? They've gone too far. First of all, Stephanie is not even going to allow that to happen. Stephanie McMahon is not going to allow that to happen, first and foremost. And Triple H is not going to let that happen either. So calm down, okay? They'll be fine. The women will be fine. And I'm sure the women gave the okay for this stuff to happen. So if they gave the okay for it to happen and they were cool with it, that means it's fine. Okay? I mean, it doesn't always mean it's fine, but in this instance, yes. I like the whole attack on Nia by Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, and Dolph Ziggler. I really do. I was shocked that Ziggler made the final three, even though I spelled Ziggler's name wrong for some reason. I was surprised that he made the final three. So much for taking that hiatus, Dolph, huh? In his interview with Chris Van Vliet. That ended up being a huge crock of shit. Which that teaches us to not believe anything that these wrestlers say to us, which is a damn shame. So Rollins curb stomped Braun Strowman out to get the win, and Seth Rollins is your 2019 Men's Royal Rumble winner, and he, as of this past week's Raw, will challenge Brock Lesnar for the Universal title, and Becky Lynch will challenge Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's title. Both matches will be great. Both matches will be solid. I believe that in my heart of hearts at WrestleMania. And both Becky and Seth will be your new world champions coming out of WrestleMania. I am very hopeful of that, and that better happen. All in all, this was a great show. I mean, not a great show. It was a very good show. Was it the best Royal Rumble event? No. Were the two Royal Rumble matches the best Royal Rumble matches ever? No. Hell no. And like I said earlier in this video, I thought that last year's Women's Rumble match was better. Great time. Out of 5. I'd give it out of 5. I'd give this event, I'd say 3. 3 out of 5. I don't remember what I gave NXT TakeOver Phoenix. I think I gave them a 3.5 out of 5. Or maybe a 4. I think. But I'm going to give this Royal Rumble a 3 out of 5. Solid 3 out of 5. No higher than that. I'm not going to go any higher than that. I think it's fair. All in all, this was a great weekend for wrestling. TakeOver delivered, as usual. And the Rumble delivered. Even though I think many people had their doubts. I had my little doubts, but they still delivered. I still think TakeOver was better. Not just because the pay-per-view or the event itself was shorter, but because it was just more quality wrestling. And things were a lot smoother. Like I said, with the Royal Rumble event, there were some matches that were sloppy. Some matches that missed that extra impact, that extra oomph to it. If that makes any sense, if you understand what I'm saying. But all in all, this was a good show. I was so exhausted at the end of this show that I said to myself, I'm not going to watch no wrestling at all tomorrow. And all day yesterday, Monday, I did not watch any wrestling. I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to it. But Brock needs to lose the Universal title. And Brock needs to take a lesser role within the company. Just let him be that special attraction after he loses the title. I don't even want to see him get a rematch for the title. He don't need no rematch. He doesn't need to be in any title picture for the rest of his run in the WWE. It's over. Brock is done. After seeing what he did, throwing the title at Vince on the WWE 24 documentary, I've lost... I mean, I'll always have some respect for Brock, but whatever massive amount of respect I had for him dwindled just a little bit. So, I'm out.